All right, welcome everybody. This video is going to go over fleet racing courses and sailboat racing. We're going to start with the most basic course to talk about the structure and the terminology, which is this windward leeward course. Then I'll briefly sketch up some common course additions that we typically see in college sailing. So for this windward leeward course, we have our wind coming straight down the page. We have our pin mark. Then we have the RC boat, race committee boat. We have a windward mark, also called the weather mark or A mark. And then we have our leeward mark, or sometimes called C mark. Now on the RC boat, there's usually like a flagpole or some identifier that race committee will let you know, which combined with a pin forms the imaginary starting line. And that's it. That's pretty much the windward leeward course. So before a start, we usually have all of our boats on the starting line. A typical starting sequence uses a series of short and long whistles or horns to count down, usually from 3 minutes to 0, which is go. And that's a series of whistles, usually as a bunch of short ones to start, which indicates a warning that a sequence is about to begin. Then we have 3 long whistles for 3 minutes. Then 2 long whistles for 2 minutes. 1 long whistle, 3 short whistles for 1 minute and 30 seconds. 1 long whistle for 1 minute, and then 3 short for 30 seconds, 2 short for 20 seconds, 1 short for 10 seconds. Then we have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 1 long one for go. And that's pretty common across the board. It doesn't really matter where you're racing. This is usually it. So once we get the final go signal, the sailboats cross the starting line and tack upwind to the windward mark. Then they round the windward mark on the outside with the mark on the port side of their boat. And they begin the downwind leg. So they start sailing downwind. Now, depending on the race committee's instructions, the line may either be open or closed. So if it is open, that means that we can go through the line. If it is closed, that means we have to go either outside the pin or outside the committee boat down towards the leeward mark, your choice. For now, we'll assume that the line is closed and we chose to go through the pin side. Then we continue sailing downwind until we get to the leeward mark. We round the leeward mark again with the mark on the port side of our boat on the outside of the mark. And then we start the last upwind leg, tacking upwind through the finish line. So the course I just drew has 3 legs. It has 1 upwind leg, 1 downwind leg, and then a final upwind leg. So 3 legs equals a W3 race. Now you can use the same course structure, but then have 4 legs, which is a W4. And that looks like this. So we tack upwind again around the windward mark, sail downwind around the leeward mark. And instead of stopping at the start line on this second upwind, we actually continue all the way to the windward mark again. But remember, we're assuming that the starting line is closed. So we have to go outside the RC boat or outside the pin. And then we round the windward mark 1 more time. And so far we're at 3 legs. Now we just need the 4th. So we're going to sail downwind through the finish line. So instead of an upwind finish, now we're going to have a downwind. So every odd number of legs is an upwind finish. Every even number of legs is a downwind finish. And when we refer to areas of the course, we draw this imaginary line between the windward mark and the leeward mark. And anything to the left is called course left. And anything to the right is called course right. It doesn't matter what perspective you're sailing at, these are always the case. So course right is always to the right when viewing it from this perspective, same with course left. This can get confusing when you're sailing downwind and your perspective is flipped 180 degrees. So your left side will actually still be course right. So you just got to keep that in mind. All right, that pretty much is, forms all the basics and the foundational material for kind of what a sailboat course looks like. Now we're going to go through a couple of elemental additions to this bare bones course that are pretty common in college sailing fleet racing courses. So the first one is the windward offset or reach mark. And you still round it on your port side. And it's usually introduced to separate different fleets of sailboats that are sharing the same course. So I'll go ahead and draw that real quick. We have, again, our wind coming down the page. We have our pin, our committee boat, our windward mark, and our leeward mark. And now we have this fourth mark right here, which is usually to the left and leeward a little bit of the windward mark. And that is the windward offset. So when we sail this course, we still pretty much sail it the same way. We round windward mark to the port side, and now we must round this reach offset mark also to the port side of our boat on the outside of the mark, and then continue the course. So most frequently, this offset mark, or basically this reach-ish leg, is not actually considered when we're talking about the total number of legs when it's this small. So we still have our 3 legs is still a W3. Sometimes the course will be trapezoidal, in which case we will have our pin, committee boat, windward mark, leeward mark, starting line, and our reach mark will be all the way to the left of the pin, and then there will be another one leeward of that, where we basically get 2 reach legs. So here's one reach leg, we have our downwind, we have another reach leg, we have our upwind. So this is considered a leg, and this is also considered a leg. So we've got one upwind, one reach, one downwind, another reach, and then a final upwind, which in this case, this would be a W5. All right, the last 2 course additions are the leeward gate and the offset finish mark. This course is very common in college sailing because it basically introduces a decision point where the sailors have to choose to either round the left side or the right side of this gate that I'm about to draw. And sometimes that decision splits the fleet. Sometimes it doesn't really matter. It depends all on the wind and the dynamics of the day and the time. But I'll go ahead and draw that. So we have our pin, we have our committee boat, we've got our windward mark. And now instead of having a leeward mark that is leeward of the line, I'm going to draw a gate that is above the line right here. So let me draw this in green actually. So this is the leeward gate. And then I also have, put this in green as well. Well, it isn't blue. We also have the finish offset. So instead of finishing through the start line, we have a finish offset that is a little bit windward and to the right of the committee boat. So we'll have a mark here, and then this will be the finish line. So this is the finish offset. Now, when sailing this course, after start, we still tack upwind. We can go through the gate if we choose to. Let me do this in blue. Can go through the gate if we choose to. We still round the windward mark. And now we head down wind towards the gate. Now, when we get to the gate, we have a choice. We can either go through and round to course left or go through and round to course right. And there's an important distinction. So we have our wind still coming down the page. Remember, I was talking about course right and course left. but when we refer to which gate side we round, we actually refer to that as gate left and gate right, which is from the perspective of us sailing downwind through the gate. So that gets a little confusing. Course left, course right versus gate right, gate left. We must round through the gate, and then we can either round gate right or we can round gate left. I'm going to choose to round gate right. And after I round gate right, then I continue my way upwind again, all the way to the windward mark. I round the windward mark for a second time, again on the port side of the boat. And now I am going to head to the finish line, which is made by this finish offset. So I'm going to sail this way, kind of on a broad reach, maybe all the way through the finish line. So let's count the number of legs. We've got one upwind, one downwind, second upwind, and a second downwind. So that's a W4, 4 legs. All right, that's all for this video. Be sure to check out the other sailing and racing content on this channel. And of course, thanks and gig 'em.